Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm
How's
doing
your
well.
family doing?
I'm good. I
Yeah.
love Billy.
Yeah. So what you got on deck today?
I have stuff. I wanted uh, this is a long time coming because
Uh-huh.
um, the it's Black History Month, as we all know,
Yeah.
and I don't celebrate. You celebrate?
No, I don't
Why?
celebrate. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It feels so forced, huh? I mean, for me, like every time it
Yeah.
goes on, I'm like,
Well,
here.
I'm kind of more concerned about Black future right now than Black history. Black history is sort of what it is, and it depends on who you ask, and all this other kind of stuff. But where are we going is, I think, a more pertinent question. And I understand that you can't know where you're going without knowing where you've been. I get all that. At the same time, Black History Month in particular doesn't really paint an entire picture of where we've been. It just keeps us in that sort of victim mentality, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, no, I share that opinion. I also feel like it's just the same stories. Like nothing new is learned when we know much has been learned, and they being the people that put it in the forefront, where the kids learn and at school and all those things, they they only keep it those same five heroes. The Martin Luther King, the Rosa Parks, the who else? I almost said Nat Turner. They definitely don't talk
What's
about
your
Nat Turner.
question?
But my question is specifically about one of the heroes they push during Black History Month is Martin Luther King. And my question is whether or not he was a true Black history hero or if he was a pawn in a bigger game. Because it all feels a little shady to me. So I was doing some research, and that's my question. I'm wondering.
So what'd you come up with so far? Like, how do you feel about it?
So I went in with one view after watching a little bit of controversy, and I was like, oh, he was a pawn. He was a pawn. Oh my God. Like it changed everything. And then as I got further, my perception changed and I felt more comfortable with what I came up with. But I was going to take you down the path a little bit, like what I
Yeah,
went through.
take me down that path.
Okay, so
I'm interested.
what I'm going to do is show you kind of really briefly, just show you where we're at with MLK as far as what is constantly pushed to us, this great, wonderful hero, and how it affected the
Yeah.
people. Yeah, all that good stuff.
Now, you know me well enough to know that I have a problem with hero worship in general. There's a
Right.
lot of stuff going on Twitter right now with people calling other people out, and this person's not this, and this person. I'm like, I could care less. If anybody's giving me some information that I can use, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna keep it pushing. But I'm not really into the hero worship. They love to do that. They love to do that.
They love which kind of is what I'm saying too is they there's the approved heroes and then there's people that
Right.
know.
MLK has definitely got the stamp of approval on them.
Right, exactly. I'm trying to go full screen. 1 second, please. Okay, that should work. Well, we'll see. Okay, good. So we're going to start with a clip from someone we know and love, or some may love, at 12 years old.
My name is Kanye West, and my poem is His Name Means Love. A man who fought for freedom, a man who fought for equality. Those who were against him were too blind to see what this man was fighting for. So blacks, Hispanics, Jews, and Asians could put their foot in the door. Yes, we know that this man is great. That's why today we celebrate. And everyone lifts their voice and sings for a man who wanted freedom to reign. Martin Luther King is who I'm speaking of, a man whose name means love.
Cute.
He kind of reminds me of me when I was younger in that
Are you
clip.
all like, he seems like militant to me. Like he's like, I'm
Yeah,
gonna speak on this.
he's on his Michael from Good Times.
Yeah, right. He got
Yeah.
his whole era, he got it flowing through his blood. It's
I'm
cute.
gonna be the first black president. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
he's
I'm
on
gonna be
his.
the next. What was interesting about that clip is that I noticed when that he put it was like all inclusive and it wasn't
Mhm.
about so much black people. I wonder if they were already pushing that inclusivity, diversity, equity back then. I believe.
They probably were, but not to
Uh-huh.
the extent that it is now.
Right. It's
They
kind of
probably
splitting it.
were to some degree because all right, I mean, it is what it is. It was a whole lot of Jewish folks behind the civil rights movement. So, I mean, it is what it is. I don't want to, I don't be calling me no names or nothing, but it is what it is. I mean, there was as many Jews behind it as there was black folks behind it. So there's a question of who was leading who, you know what I'm saying?
I have a request. How about we
Okay.
say Zionist instead of Jew? Because I
Uh,
believe that's
we'll
who
see.
they were.
The thing is, I don't know if these people were Zionists or not, but I do know that they
Well,
were Jewish.
all right. Well, I know that they were, if they were pushing Israel, then they were Zionists. That's a Zionist push. We know there's a difference between,
Yeah,
the
I just
religion
don't
and
know.
the political movement.
Yeah, I just don't know. I'm saying Jewish because of their ethnicity and
Mm,
not talking about their beliefs necessarily because I don't know these. This is civil rights. I wasn't around. I don't know.
right. That's a whole nother conversation. Their
Yeah,
ethnicity, like they're not Israeli.
yeah,
So
but there
it's
were like Jewish people wrote Martin Luther King's speeches and such. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if he was a Zionist.
they were by his
I know he
side.
was Jewish. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
that's all I could. That's why I didn't use the word Zionist because I don't know their political affiliations necessarily.
And that's
And just
true.
be, and
That Zionism would
and they
be
can be pro communist and not necessarily Zionists.
Mhm.
So
Well, maybe we'll learn something on the when I have some clips about that as well. But from what I see, they say Zionists, and Zionism wasn't as much of a bad term then than it is now. So they were trying to make it a positive. Right now, it can't be because of all that's been done. People are starting to see, hey, that's not nice. Stop killing people. So that's my understanding, but maybe not. We'll see, right? I'm gonna show one more clip on his legacy and then we can move on from there. But just to remind us of how he's
how we're
how he's
taught to
presented.
look at him, how we're taught to revere him.
Yes, the God.
Mm.
Oops. Almost had it, huh?
I have a dream that one day down in Alabama with its vicious races, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of imposition and nullification.
His words, efforts, and passion.
One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Showed me I could be anything I want to be.
If you will march on with your brothers in Alabama, you will look around and see that glad day when all of God's children will be able to cry out, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Let the nation and the world know we are tired now.
So like emotion provoking, like it's like
Yeah, well, that's what they do. They have to appeal to emotion because that's what gets you drummed up. That's what gets you out of your seat. That's what gets you, motivated.
right. And that voice, with his bravado and his passion, it's like drilled into us constantly.
Well, yeah, it
I
does
will
trip me out as like if you want to be a good preacher, the closer you sound to Martin Luther King, the better you are, really.
like Al Sharpton and all the people that came after
Yeah.
were also pushing agendas, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? So yeah, so that goes into what I wanted to show too, was that in true American fashion, these things they start to get like, let me give you an example. I don't know, you know how people say stuff like that McDonald's is the mecca of all McDonald's or whatever, which is like Mecca is a serious place for people, for Muslims on a spiritual journey. And Americans, we just tend to make things just weird, and the legacy itself gets garbled. So I was noticing some stuff when I was looking at the research that I was when I was researching. That's all I needed. That there's some weird stuff that comes up around him, and I found it interesting. You might too, you might not, but let's see.
There have been some questionable modern day tributes to
Questionable.
MLK. Maybe my favorite is every year when the FBI tweets out like Happy MLK Day. Just watching the ratio come in on them. The ratio every year too. It's amazing. In 2021, Time Magazine, along with Fortnite, created a virtual space where gamers could experience MLK's "I Have a Dream" speech in its entirety in a re-imaged version of DC that allowed gamers to visit museum-like exhibits that tell the story of King's speech. By completing the experience, gamers could unlock a special spray that they could use in Fortnite matches. Whereas Fortnite has done similar events with concerts and brand collaborations, incorporating historical moments and important political movements, struck many as bizarre and dystopian.
While that sounds really stupid,
I think their heart's in the right place.
I don't think
it does.
it just sounds kind of ridiculous. But like when
That's we don't have to keep going, but what do you think about that?
Well, I don't understand what kind of spray. What is
I
that?
think you put Fortnite, but it's something it just seems so commercialized with brands and all this stuff. Like, I just,
Well, yeah, it definitely is commercialized. It's big business. Definitely.
Right.
Definitely. I agree with you there.
so then,
Definitely.
yeah, I mean, I have the same question then. And I also want to know if he knew he was going to be commercialized and was building his persona based on that.
I don't know if he knew he'd be commercialized, because that would, in my opinion, make the assumption that he knew he'd be killed.
Oh, well, he knew he'd die one day.
Yeah, so I don't think he thought of it that way. I think that the powers that be put certain people, they lionize certain people for us. They give us heroes, Einstein, Martin Luther King. They tell us who is, like you said, approved heroes.
They build the story. What am I trying to say? Like, I didn't know this. She speaks to it. I'm gonna play the clip, but I didn't know the correlation between the song and Martin Luther King Day. But this was weird to me too. So let me play this real quick.
Yes, I did see this. The royal family posted this on their Instagram, which backs up my theory that this was entirely performative. Buckingham Palace had the Grenadier Guards play Happy Birthday by Stevie Wonder to recognize Martin Luther King Day. MLK Day is not Martin Luther King Jr.'s actual birthday. His birthday is January 15th. The federal holiday in the US moves around so that it always falls on a Monday around his birthday. So on its face, playing the song Happy Birthday is performative, and it doesn't really get at the essence of the holiday and why it exists. For many people, Martin Luther King Day is a day of action, and so this performative gesture doesn't really hold a candle to things that other royals did to celebrate and acknowledge that day. However, the song Happy Birthday was originally written by Stevie Wonder to specifically help campaign to have MLK Day become a federal holiday. So the song itself has been completely entwined with MLK Day since it was created. So yeah, a bit tone deaf of the royals, but not terrible.
So that's I didn't know that. So it makes it for
What
me.
part didn't you know?
That Stevie Wonder, like, he wrote the song to campaign for the day to be a holiday, which
Oh,
it makes it feel more of a plan. And also, it's weird that they're celebrating in the UK. I don't really get that part either. But
well, I don't know these people, so I don't know who's part of what plan or whatever. But I believe that as they pushed this campaign to um, to make Martin Luther King's birthday a national holiday, as the powers that be put that into the zeitgeist or whatever, I do believe that celebrities and anybody else can get caught up in it and say, yes, this is a good thing. And, right. And somebody like Stevie Wonder, I mean, a song like, listen, when I was writing songs at my peak, I could write a song a day, you know what I'm saying? When I was like really, really into it. So, and somebody this genius like Stevie Wonder, that was Prince's goal, to write a song a day. And somebody like Stevie Wonder, that song, he probably whipped that thing out in like, you know what I'm saying? Like, for Stevie,
you never know how big a song's going to be or how important it is when you're writing. You just do it for the
Well,
whatever.
Black folks have taken that song to be happy birthday instead of happy birthday to you, the traditional birthday song.
Right.
Like in my family, we sing happy birthday to you, and then we go into Stevie Wonder song.
We do too. Funny. That's
Yeah, we start off with a nice one, and then we get groovy with it. We
see
get
that
funky with
that's
it.
that's so interesting. That's how these things are intertwined in our lives, and we have no control really over that. Like that,
What do
this
you
is
mean?
something.
No, people like the song. It's a good song.
Oh, I love the song, and Stevie Wonder's everything. But I'm saying like that it was a construct, which is cool. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that stuff, but they put this out there for a specific purpose, and the purpose just happens to be what we're talking about today.
Well,
But
again, see, again, I'm not sure if they put this out is the appropriate way to describe what happened. Okay, so I'm watching an Ice Cube interview, right? And he's talking
mhm,
about how hip hop music, how they used it to for the prison, the music to prison pipeline.
yep,
And I forget who was interviewing. I want it was it Shannon Sharp? I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but he said, but he said, but Cube, you wrote those lyrics. I mean, nobody told you to write those lyrics. And he was,
right.
yeah. He said, yeah, but I was not in a position to put it forward that way, right? So he was expressing himself and doing what he did, but and so I think that maybe Stevie Wonder was expressing himself and doing what he did, but the powers that be take they see everything, right? So they take what they like and they promote what they want and don't promote what they don't.
I think what's making me think that I hear you, but what's making me think it, I think, is that so now this year on his birthday, the Royals are still pushing it or playing it. Maybe not push is the wrong word, but the Royals in the UK, and we understand a little about the relationship between Britain and the US. And he's an American hero. I don't have an answer. It just seems weird to me.
Well,
It's
it just
question
seems like they're pandering, they're virtue signaling, is what it
for
seems like
what?
to me. Huh?
Because they don't want to pay reparations or something. I mean, for what? They can
No,
do
they're
what they want.
virtue signaling.
Why?
I mean, why?
They just want
Show
us
that
to
they
look.
have virtue. That's what
Okay,
a
why do
virtue
they?
signal
I just
is.
don't know what they care about that for. But okay.
They don't necessarily care, but they want everybody to think that they care. They're virtue signaling. You know what that
Yeah, I
phrase
know,
means, right? Yeah.
exactly. But I'm saying, why do they want us to look at them in a nice, like they're virtuous? Why do they care about us looking how we look at them?
Really?
I mean, I know it's like human nature, but that are
No,
they
it's not even human nature. Like, seriously? You
say
don't want
say?
the world hating you? Come on.
I
Who wants
guess.
the world hating them?
I
Like, how is
mean,
that good PR to really not care
they own
if you're
all
in
the
a
land,
power?
all the things. They have all the money. They don't. I don't just. I guess. I don't see what they
Right.
need,
So you
but
keep treating people with contempt, and what happens to what do those people do?
they come to the big house with the torches.
There you go. So you assuage them.
Copy that.
I mean,
So
it
I
makes
thought that
perfect
was,
sense to me. Yeah, it's total virtue signal.
yeah.
It's like the Democrats taking a knee and
Oh my,
yeah.
that was the moment. Oh goodness. Oh wait. So I have a clip like that. Okay, so this was another tribute, an MLK tribute that like first of all, Martin Luther King, I mean, I think it's nice to be involved in the tribute, but he wasn't talking about Africa or African drums or even matter of fact, he was like when Plymouth Rock landed on us, we were here. He actually says that in his speeches. But that's just funny to me. It's like, what that's what you
I
guys come up with?
yeah. I wonder what would have to happen to get a bunch of black people on stage doing
An
uh
Icelandic river dance.
right for like Thor God of Thunder or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little you know, but again, like people like this, like that's what trips me out. They're trying to be good people.
Exactly. At the end of the day, they are. And it's what they call tone deaf, and it's weird. And it's, Black people are relentless with their criticism of this stuff, which isn't always the best approach, in my opinion, because it just hurts people's feelings. Then they're not trying to hurt
I
anybody.
wish they would have had. Well, I don't even know. Listen. Maybe they. I don't. I don't know the context. I don't know if they had some traditional, some kind of something presentation before this or whatever. I mean, I know what I witnessed looked incredibly awkward, but I don't know what came before or after, or I don't have. There's not a lot of context, to
Yeah.
make judgments on it.
The internet should be called the
But
land of no
but I
comment.
but yeah, but I don't think they're white supremacists. You know what I'm saying? I
No,
don't think they're
definitely
racists.
not.
You know what I'm saying?
They're not
So
trying to hurt anybody. They're just not
right, they're just
because
they.
I don't Martin Luther King, I don't recall him ever embracing like an African or Pan-Africanism or anything even having to do with Africa. So it's interesting. I don't even know if those are African drums. I don't know. It looked like African Haitian dance, which that's a whole another thing. I don't know.
Well, I didn't see much dancing. I just saw.
When the lady came out right before it stopped, she was doing her little like
I mean, it's that's it's kind of funny because whenever somebody wants to get racist, whenever a white person wants to get racist and dog on black people, I always say, look, you have to worry about liberal white women before you worry about black women. before you have to worry about race. Like get your own in check, basically, is what I say. Because
right. And it gets
they're
why
that's
why
the
do they
voting
say
block, really, that's fucking everything up for everybody. This unmarried white women. So that's the
I don't know about the unmarried. I don't know, but I know
no,
the
it really is. No, I'm telling you, it
like
really is. That's the
statistically it
demographic.
is.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
I wonder
So
why did they get it so wrong? Like why did they? Because what I see them doing, these liberal white women, I see them seeing a situation and then overcorrecting it to the point where it turns into something that doesn't resemble the problem or a solution, and really ruining a lot of stuff, which is why we still have Angola prison, which is named after a country in Africa, but we lost Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima. It's like, what are you doing? It's why do you think that happens?
I don't
Any
know.
It's so weird.
Uh,
So weird. And Black people now they're starting to notice, like a lot of them do, a lot of us, I'll say, do kind of go along and stand by, and they're just happy that somebody's finally fighting, for what they perceive to be the right thing. But people are starting to see, and they're funny. I saw this clip posted again with some Black dude saying, "What in the unseasoned chicken is this?" Because they go hard with the. So I hope they have thick skins. So yeah, but that's just another way that it just starts to get like garbled, which is why I'm asking the question that I'm asking. Was he a Black history hero? Or was he a pawn in some weird game, some hidden game? Because we don't know. It gets so convoluted with all these other things, and
yeah.
I'm still curious. And this is another cute example.
School. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. What did he do? He died for his sins. No, that was
So yeah.
But in a way, he kind of did.
And I know that's why I said maybe, but yeah, she
She's
got it
not 100% wrong. He's
wrong.
just not famous for that. That's not what he's known for.
Right, exactly.
Huh?
Oh, she's a cutie.
Yeah.
She
Martin
tried.
Luther King.
Martha Luca King.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know who this comic was, but he was calling him Martin Luther the King, and I was cracking up. Martin Luther the King.
Really?
It was a stand-up comic. Yeah, I just remember him saying it. Martin Luther the King.
That is the same. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know why that happens. America is the best for it, though, making
So
fame.
far, we're seeing him painted as a saint. Is that what you're saying?
As a saint, and also getting, his legacy is just getting
So when did it
convoluted.
start to get, a little cloudy for you?
This next young woman's video had something I had never heard before, and it's very interesting to me. So let's listen.
Lesser known MLK facts way more people should know. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth name was Michael King Jr. His father changed both their names after returning from a trip to Germany, where he was inspired by the theologian Martin Luther that was the catalyst behind the Protestant Reformation. In 1974, MLK's mother, Alberta Williams King, was assassinated at church while she played the organ. The assailant was 21-year-old Marcus Wayne Chenault. Chenault was a Hebrew Israelite that went by the name of Servant Jacob. His leader, a man by the name of Mr. Israel, taught him that civil rights leaders were false prophets. So Chenault made a list and decided to get rid of them, and this led to the assassination of Alberta Williams King. The Fair Housing Act was passed 7 days after the assassination of Martin Luther King. Before his assassination, MLK was advocating for housing rights for Black Americans. Because of the Fair Housing Act, it is now illegal to deny housing based on race, color, and several other protected classes.
You know which one I'm talking about that I didn't know about.
That his mom was assassinated? Yeah, I didn't know that either.
By a
By a
Hebrew
Israelite. Right.
Weird.
Right.
You think we would have heard that?
But that's they they use yours to take you out. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just oh my God. I watched so many things all day, and I was just watching something about the bodyguard. Like who's gonna take out
Who Diddy's bodyguard or
no, it was talking about taking out some of these leaders. It's something that might be in the news this week, actually. And he was like, who's best to take out, you're surrounded by these armed bodyguards. Who's best to take out a leader? The bodyguard, especially when they're American trained. So it was like, yeah, so we just pay off the bodyguards like that. Like I was, ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They take but yeah, she was assassinated. That's so weird.
Yeah, by a Hebrew Israelite.
Right.
I think Jack Rubenstein shot Lee Harvey Oswald, It's a trip how they, kind of use yours to take out yours. Have you seen that crazy rumor going around? I know this is way off the topic for just for 1 second, but just for one quick second. People are saying that Lee Harvey Oswald is either young Joe Biden or Joe Biden's father or something like that. Have you seen this?
No. Do you have a clip?
No, I don't have nothing ready to show you, but look.
That's so weird. I saw one that said Trump is Elvis. Like, I'm just like, you guys are doing a lot.
Well, he actually tweeted that out because people were saying it.
Yeah,
and
but
he tweeted out a picture of him next to Elvis, but he's saying that he's not Elvis. Obviously, he's not Elvis, but yeah, they say some crazy stuff. They say JFK Jr. is still alive, all kind of stuff. I listen.
Yeah, I listen.
I'm never going to report that like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm never going to say it like
I've got caught up once or twice. I'll say, like the comedian and Alex Jones. That was interesting to me. What's the comedian's name? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I got caught up in one or two, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So that was some controversy or little lesser known facts is what I'll call them. And then this to me, I would like to play the whole video if possible.
Yeah.
If you don't get bored. I feel like it's great.
Countless campaigns, protests, and efforts to redress the injustices of American life and boil them down to just one speech. And really, to just one line of that one speech. And everybody loves that one line.
Our ears that we must judge one another by the content of our character and not the color of our skin.
Now, he wanted people to be judged by the character and not by the color of their skin.
On the color of my skin, but on the content of my character.
We should judge our fellow citizens by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin.
This obsession with the content of their character line and the I have a dream speech in general is no accident, by the way. It's been part of the tactical recuperation of MLK's legacy by the American state and its defenders for decades. An effort that is immortalized in the Reagan years. Why Reagan? Because Reagan is the guy who made MLK Day a national holiday. As such, you'll sometimes hear dweebs claim this 6'1" flake of dandruff brought to life was actually proof of how the great American patriot can reconcile the country's racist history and become the biggest champion of racial justice. But that's wrong. Because for a guy like Reagan to become the MLK Day guy, a lot needed to change about how America viewed MLK. The Reverend could no longer be the radical extremist despised by over 2/3 of the country, the most hated man in America. He had to become an empty shell for any vague sentiment of justice. And, most importantly, he had to be the colorblind guy. Because how did Reagan really feel about the civil rights movement? Let's take this quote from an article in The Nation. Reagan opposed every major piece of civil rights legislation adopted by Congress, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968. As president, Reagan supported tax breaks for schools that discriminated on the basis of race, opposed the extension of the Voting Rights Act, vetoed the Civil Rights Restoration Act, and decimated the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. When you combine Reagan's political record with his symbolic stance on race issues, his deriding welfare recipients as welfare queens, his employing states' rights rhetoric in the same county where, in 1964, 3 of the most infamous murders of civil rights workers occurred, his initial opposition to establish a national holiday to commemorate Martin Luther King Jr., the Reagan legacy begins to lose much of its luster. And that's putting this outwardly racist guy's legacy extremely mildly. So then, why would Reagan suddenly flip on this issue, and why would the "I have a dream" line become the rallying call for every politician trying to score easy popularity points? 2 academics explain it pretty clearly in this article. The focus on "I have a dream" in public discourse also made King ripe for appropriation because the emphasis on one speech and one issue served to obscure King's many other speeches and writings, as well as his less successful ventures, such as his effort to desegregate Chicago, his opposition to the Vietnam War, and the Poor People's Campaign. As early as 1964, for example, King praised the Indian government's preferential college admissions policy for untouchables, and argued that the United States must also find ways of atoning for the injustices she has inflicted upon her Negro citizens. The civil rights leader called for a broad-based and gigantic Bill of Rights for the disadvantaged, parallel with the GI Bill of Rights, for a guaranteed annual income, and for restitution in the form of radical changes in the structure of society that would provide African Americans with compensation in education, housing, employment, and healthcare. The public focus on "I Have a Dream," with its simple poetic beauty, overshadowed the specific proposals that King had recommended in order to achieve his dream, again making it much easier for President Reagan to appropriate King for his own uses. And those uses were gutting the policies MLK advocated for in favor of the Reaganomic free market liberalism that funneled wealth from the poor to the wealthy, which, given how wealth distribution looks in this country, also meant from many black people to very few white people. But the trick is that focusing exclusively on the "I have a dream" speech and misinterpreting it entirely allowed neoliberals to turn MLK into some weird conservative libertarian who wouldn't have wanted all this big government stuff that took into account people's race in its effort to redress the historical wrongs that made one group of colonized and enslaved people materially worse off than the people who colonized them. Dr. King would have hated redistribution, trust me. He loved and definitely wanted more of that sweet, sweet free market capitalism and the colonial and chattel slavery systems it was born out of. He doesn't want a race-conscious system of justice. That doesn't sound very colorblind, guys. Doesn't sound very content of our character. My best buddy MLK would definitely not approve. But of course he did. Don't be fooled. Actually listen to the guy for once.
And the greed and exploitation which create the sector of poverty in the midst of wealth. Again, we have deluded ourselves into believing the myth that capitalism grew and prospered out of the Protestant ethic of hard work and sacrifice. The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of black slaves. And continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, both here and abroad. We must also realize that the problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power. We must further recognize that the ghetto is a domestic colony Black people must develop programs that will aid in the transfer of power and wealth into the hands of residents of the ghetto so that they may in reality control their own destinies.
And that's just 2 snippets out of many.
Yeah, what's interesting about that, I knew that Reagan was racist, but sometimes when they break it down like that, you just go, ooh, like he really was racist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I didn't know that he had. I remember the incident with the Black Panthers and the gun law that he brought into effect after they came onto the Sacramento. I think it was the Capitol building.
Mhm.
In protection of themselves, and he immediately made open carry law, because of the Black people. But that I didn't hear about. I didn't hear about all the laws he vetoed or his stance on
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know it was like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, damn, bruh. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting how they're explaining they co-opted MLK. So he was a radical and he was disliked, and they've sort of given us a different version of this is this is why you don't idolize this. Yeah, this is why you can't idolize nobody, because they're giving you certain attributes to look at. And I always thought I Have a Dream was one of those things that it was never fulfilled. You know what I'm saying? I Have a Dream is something that you never get, right?
right, yeah,
It's always far off. It's
Mhm.
always a dream. It's never an accomplishment,
Yeah,
So
it's
that
not.
was
Speaking of, well, I had this clip and I can't find it. I had it about a year or so ago, but I do want to talk. I do want to say it because you mentioned the dream thing, and we're talking about agendas, like if he was if he was being used for a different purpose. And it's so interesting. It was this white woman, or she was kind of young, so I'll just say a Caucasian girl, and she had a dream. It was an actual dream, and in this dream, it was so powerful that she wanted to tell the people on the internet. So she, in this dream, she saw the assassination of Martin Luther King, and kind of in a voyeuristic view, she saw Black people from all over the United States. After that happened, after he died, she saw them all just kind of put their head down and walk inside and go to sleep. And her message was that it's time to wake up. Like it's time to wake up. And that was the kind of like the purpose almost. I found it very interesting, especially in context of what we're talking about.
yeah, that is interesting.
So I wanted to tell you too, I don't know if you know this, but I found it's a little weird, but MLK is one of only 2 Americans that have a national holiday in their name.
And Lincoln?
No, Washington. Yeah.
Oh no, actually now it's President's Day, right?
They got rid of Washington. I thought they had Washington and President's Day. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of weird to me a little bit. Like,
I don't know.
I thought there were so many great Americans. They talk about them all the time. I don't know. So yeah, that was that. Oh, about the last clip too, coming into pushing agendas or potentially possibly being a pawn to push an agenda. When they mentioned the universal basic income, I know, like, I feel like his intentions were probably good, but I know now it's looked at as controversial as far as pushing, more government control. So I find that kind of interesting that was one of the things that he was a proponent of and actively campaigning for.
Well, I think he felt that the only way that this stuff was going to get done is if the government implemented it. So I don't know if he was looking at it necessarily like government control. He was looking at it like this is where we get our money from.
This is more, yeah. And plus they did it, so they got to pay back what they cost us.
For real though.
I mean, I get what he's saying, so that's what I wonder. I think now it's more controversial, like I said. So this other dude, you know what? I'm gonna play a clip for you that is extra controversial. No, it just talks more about the and I feel like you mentioned it several times now, the communism correlation, and that's what this guy's about. He's not my favorite person. Hold on, I'm sorry, my screen disappeared. As
I get
always.
information from people I don't like all the time.
Yeah, I know that, a good analogy for that I say is the barbecue analogy. Like, or what do you do with like, wait, what do you do with meat? You eat the meat and throw away the bones instead of just being completely against the whole meal. Hold on,
Yeah.
I gotta over. This is just stupid. I was doing so good. I get it. Okay, here we go. I want to play him. I want to play him.
Labor Day 1957, a special meeting was attended by Martin Luther King and four others at a strange institution called the Highlander Folk School in Monteagle, Tennessee. The Highlander Folk School was a communist front, having been founded by Miles Horton, Communist Party organizer for Tennessee, and Don West, organizer for North Carolina. The leaders of this meeting with King were the aforementioned Horton and West, along with Abner Barrett and James Dombrowski, all open and acknowledged members of the Communist Party USA. The agenda of the meeting was a plan to tour the southern states to initiate demonstrations and riots. From 1955 to 1960, Martin Luther King's associate, advisor, and personal secretary was one Bayard Rustin. In 1936, Rustin joined the Young Communist League at New York City College. Convicted of draft dodging, he went to prison for 2 years in 1944. On January 23, 1953, the Los Angeles Times reported his conviction and sentencing to jail for 60 days for lewd vagrancy and homosexual perversion. Rustin attended the 16th convention of the Communist Party USA in February 1957. 1 month later, he and King founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SCLC for short. The president of the SCLC was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The vice president of the SCLC was the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, who was also the president of an identified communist front known as the Southern Conference Educational Fund, an organization whose field director, Mr. Carl Braden, was simultaneously a national sponsor of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, of which you may have heard. The program director of the SCLC was the Reverend Andrew Young. In more recent years, Jimmy Carter's ambassador to the UN and mayor of Atlanta. Young, by the way, was trained at the Highlander Folk School, previously mentioned. Soon after returning from a trip to Moscow in 1958, Rustin organized the first of King's famous marches on Washington. The official organ of the Communist Party, the Worker, openly declared the march to be a communist project. Although he left King's employ as secretary in 1961, Rustin was called upon by King to be second in command of the much larger March on Washington, which took place on August 28, 1964. Bayard Rustin's replacement in 1961 as secretary and advisor to King was Jack Odell, also known as Hunter Pitts Odell. According to official records, in 1962, Jack Odell was a member of the National Committee of the Communist Party USA. He had been listed as a Communist Party member as early as 1956. Odell was also given the job of acting executive director for SCLC activities for the entire Southeast, according to the St. Louis Globe-Democrat of October 26, 1962. At that time, there were still some patriots in the press corps, and word of Odell's party membership became known.
I'm going to stop it there because, that's a lot of connections.
That's a trip. I didn't know he was surrounded by so many communists.
It was a time in his life too, because
earlier, and I knew that he'd gone to that school also. But see, I don't know if he was adopting their tactics to get his own thing done, or if he was, secretly a communist.
That's why it's weird. Like everything is very. It looks like he was being pulled in different directions. Some of them
It
conflicting.
don't look. I don't see him being pulled like right now. So far, what you've shown me, I don't see him being pulled, and it seems like to me he had communist leanings like flat out.
Right,
And
but
that's
then
probably why they let him go on with what he was doing. That's probably why they let him get big.
because it did match. I mean, that did match. But you've already mentioned the Zionist thing, and we in that clip, it's surprising to see no Jewish people around him at all. There was all Black communist people, and so that's what I was saying. Different times of his life, you know.
Yeah.
Except I don't know about this dude next to him in this screen, and I don't know. He doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
That's the problem. I mean, it's not a problem if you don't worship these people if you're not if you know.
Yeah, I don't know if he was straight up communist or if he was, just borrowing from their rule book.
The thing about communism, yeah, because it does on paper it looks good. Like when you look at the description, you're like, oh, that makes sense. We know it has never worked out ever in history. It never works out for the people, and it always turns to shit. So he could have been naive in a way too, and just going with what sounded good. And
Yeah, he was young.
he was young. He's very young. He died at 39. So that was the communism stuff. I do want to play more of the government. Like this is more of the government agenda play stuff, which I didn't know about either, and I found it interesting. And then I want to get into the anti-Semitism claims / Zionist connections after that. But here, let's listen to this.
Activities and one solution for every problem. Another government program, another federal agency. That's just more government and higher taxes. You look up today, and everywhere you look, you got some federal bureaucrat running around shouting, Negroes being picked on here, women over here, and this sort of business. Well, I, for one, I'm getting sick of that nonsense. Martin Luther King wasn't the least bit interested in the Negro people. What he was doing was using our grievances, legitimate grievances, to promote government programs.
And it wasn't just government programs. It was the promotion of many different things, as we're going to see throughout this thread. Now, Martin Luther King was really no different than any other big propped up figure today. Civil rights activists, racial movements like Black Lives Matter. The same sort of people are behind these movements. You can see this brief history of the Jews and the civil rights movement of the 1960s. You can see there Martin Luther King marching with the ADL and other Jewish groups. This is this picture here. And it says Jews made up half of the young people who participated in the Mississippi Freedom Summer in 1964. Half. They only represent about 1 to 2% of the population. In 1909, Henry Moskowitz joined W.E. Du Bois, and other civil rights leaders to found the NAACP.
The communist.
Now, what we say here is nothing is yours, nothing is ours, and it's all theirs to do with what they will. Who is really behind the NAACP and the civil rights movement? Now, what this means is that everything that we've been through this before, right? The brands that you wear, the trends that you do, the way that you talk, the way that you socially interact, the way that you go about your day, your worldview, the way that you vote, all of this is to a degree, either large or small, shaped and molded by those who control not only the flow of information, but the movies that you watch, the TV shows that you watch. Think about what we went over with JFK. There was that movie with Kevin.
Stop that. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit so that we get past this JFK rant. And let's see, I think it's here.
They think Drink Champs is theirs because it's owned by P. Diddy, but it's not owned by P. Diddy. It's half owned by a Jewish millionaire, right? The NAACP, not created by Black people. Martin Luther King, not propped up, not created by Black people, not grassroots. You understand? So it extends much wider than this. Everything is the Matrix. Basically, just think of the Matrix, and that's what this is. Now, the third part of this thread the fourth part of this thread is about this guy named Joseph Schwartz. Now, there's a reason why you see these racial movements crop up, like Martin Luther King, all the way up to George Floyd, right? Black Lives Matter, by the way, in part. Well, we'll get into that, but there's a reason why these things crop up. It's because it's useful to them. It's one of their biggest tools is to pick at what they view as the biggest weakness of America and now soon to be all of Western society, diversity, racial differences, cultural differences. So there was this guy named Joseph Pagani, which is what a lot of people know him by. His real name was Joseph Schwartz. He was good friends with Leon Trotsky. A lot of people know him by Trotsky. His real last name was Bronstein. And this is a clip about this guy. Take a look at this.
Communist plan for the conquest of the United States was explained to the American comrades by Moscow's agent, Joseph Pagani. Pagani was sent to this country by Stalin for the specific purpose of laying the groundwork for the agitation that would eventually develop into a Negro revolutionary movement. American Negro Problems was published in 1928 by Joseph Pagani using the alias John Pepper and carried the official communist line for America.
The Workers' Communist Party of America, in its fight against imperialism, must recognize clearly the tremendous revolutionary possibilities of the liberation movement of the Negro people.
If all goes according to the communist blueprint, Americans will believe that the chaos and violence has something to do with civil rights. Our enemies were quick to find our weakest point for their attack. They knew that racial differences could provide them with an excellent wedge to divide our people. Their strategy simply has been to keep hammering on that wedge, to drive it deeper into our social structure, to open all wounds that have long since healed, and deliberately to create new ones wherever they can.
They can and must right.
So there you go. So that is the main crux of.
See that?
Yo, that's crazy.
It makes me sad. It makes me feel like people are being used, and I don't like the weaponization of trauma. That angers me more probably than a lot of these psyops.
It is the same sort of. Well, first off, I want to back up and say the fact that BLM are Marxists, trained Marxists, does not escape me in this conversation when he's like saying it's the same thing over and over again.
I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
But it really is the same sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's like they have a mold or something and they just run the same play over and over again.
It's the same thing over and over again. And you know what's really jarring is if you look at the March on Washington side by side with the BLM, the last, the George Floyd marches on Washington, the crowd, everything, it's the same size. It's crazy.
Yeah, I feel it makes you feel like they got two fingers in your nose and they just
exactly. They're just like, yeah. It's rough.
Yeah.
And then, I just want to mention like people that like him who are reporting it. I look at it differently than he does because I feel like he has no sympathy for those who are being manipulated. And he just is just like, we need, I don't know. It just feels like they do the same thing with the migrants, which I don't want to get invaded by people who hate America, of course. But I think that they more would be served by going and saying, hey, you guys are being used. Let me show you some things. Maybe you don't want to be in that position and maybe we could work together or something. But a lot of times, and I'm not saying in this clip, but you might have encountered it as well. A lot of times they just go in on them like they're, on the people that are being manipulated, like they're stupid. And it just creates more division. That's a sidebar wish of mine that people would be more understanding that those people are victims too, just because you see it.
But it puts me in the mind of, Gloria Steinem was CIA. The women's rights movement was a manipulation.
Absolutely.
Laurel Canyon, all the musicians out of the Laurel Canyon, the hippie movement was a manipulation, all that stuff, It just, it sort of It's just another one of those psyops that they were running on us, basically, is what it was, it seems.
Does it say anything about how the people running these psyops feel about Black people, that they keep using the same play and people keep falling for it? The
Well, the
exact same
people
thing.
that run the psyops run the same psyops on everybody, first of all. It's not just on Black people.
Mhm.
But
That's true.
they don't care about anybody either. They don't care. They don't care if you're Black or white. And even the Zionists who are Jewish, they don't care about Jewish people. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? So
exactly. They
yeah,
have
they don't give a fuck about you at all. At
and
all. At all.
at all. At all. Don't give a fuck about you.
Not, right? Not even a little bit. Yeah.
So it kind I'm still wondering with MLK, obviously, I mean, well, I won't say obviously, but it looks to me from what we've watched so far that he was a pawn to
No, it doesn't
some.
look like that to me at all. It looks to me like he was a communist and that's why they let him fucking do his thing. Right?
I
He was
don't know.
advocating for shit that they wanted. They government programs, you know what I'm saying? Diversity, all that shit. He's advocating for all the shit they want. Yeah, let this nigga talk. Yeah, let this nigga talk. Let's put him on TV. Yeah,
What
okay.
about
And as soon as he starts saying shit you don't want to hear, that's when you take him out.
right? And that is what I believe happened, but I'm not sure that he was
That's what it's looking like to me anyway,
right.
because I don't believe that anybody gets a platform that big without being sanctioned anyway.
Exactly, but I just don't know if it was the communism
Gotta
model
be.
that you're.
They've been after us for a minute. I did a video shit, probably 2 or 3 years ago now, but it was the record what they read into Congress of what the goals of the Communist Party were. The 40 goals of the Communist Party or
Oh
something.
yeah, yeah. It's like verbatim, right? It looks like they're
Yeah.
following the exact playbook. That was what I was trying to pull up right there. And
Yeah.
what came to mind immediately for me, because I'm an artist myself, is the art, putting this drab, weird art everywhere. And the statue of Martin Luther King and Coretta, supposedly the depiction of them, that shit looked crazy. Like that was such a crazy piece of art. And then I was like, okay, they're actually following this playbook. MLK is not here right now, so it's not him. But yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. Let's see. Oh, so from there,
That's
I want.
crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy, right?
I'm
And
gonna have to watch that clip again. You're gonna have to send me that clip. That's a
yeah,
trip.
it's a lot longer. Actually, I wanted to see if you got more into the Zionist thing because that's what I was playing left next. So let me see if he does that right here.
Clip that I want to show you. And so when you look at, from then and on, and even before then, when you look at stuff that the media promotes and what the media refuses to promote. So George Floyd, right, versus Tony Timpa. Tony Timpa was kneeled on for 14 minutes, had drugs in his system, died. Police weren't blamed. Police didn't get punished. Police were promoted, wasn't covered in the media. And there's a million other people just like Tony Timpa. And the point is, what do you think about those interactions? It's neither here nor there. The point is that and this is going to sound hateful, anti-Semitic, I don't care. It's the truth. There's one thing you can't say about it is that it's false. The overwhelmingly controlled media, overwhelmingly controlled by Jews, promotes certain things and doesn't promote other things. Tells a tale, tells a story about certain things and doesn't tell a story about other things. The truth about the Black Lives Matter narrative, for instance, right? They say that there's an epidemic of Black murders by police, but when you look at the numbers, number one, the majority of people that are killed by police are white people. The majority of people that are killed by police are armed with guns. And when you break it down into the likelihood of having a police interaction, i.e., the rate of crime that the different racial groups commit, which leads to your likelihood of having a police encounter, when you control for that, every economist has found no racial disparity in police use of force or police shootings. There was a Black economist, Roland Fryer, who did a study specifically to prove the Black Lives Matter narrative correct, and he found out it wasn't correct, and he said he was wrong. The media doesn't tell you that stuff, and anyone within the media that comes out about this stuff and tells the truth is fired. Look at the data scientist for Reuters, the mainstream media outlet, who was fired for releasing an internal memo telling them to stop doing this, to stop lying about this. He was fired. Okay, Paul Krugman, this Jewish American economist, powerful guy, got together with a bunch of other economists to get some economist fired for telling the truth about this. You understand? So it's all a trick. You're falling for this stuff, Black Americans especially, and it's all big trick, and it's been going on for a long time, and they do it for a specific reason, which we'll get to. Martin Luther King's forgotten visit to the Holy Land. What we can learn from MLK's most important trip of his life to Israel. Now, another thing I want to point out is this, and I've pointed this out before.
You wanted to say something? Okay.
Oh, you say anything about Jewish Americans, right? About this group of elite Jewish Americans that are overrepresented in Hollywood, overrepresented in media, overrepresented in banks, overrepresented as chairs of the Federal Reserve, overrepresented in academia, overrepresented in all of these institutions that are responsible for shaping culture to the point where you think it's your culture, you've created this culture, this is your identity, when really it's theirs. NAACP, like we talked about. You talk about this, and what happens to you? Look at what happened to Ye. Look at what happened to Kyrie Irving. Look at what happened to, doesn't matter if you're black or white, Whoopi Goldberg. Look at what happens to you, right? So this is, you just have to stop falling for this. A special bond of Martin Luther King, Israel, and American Jewry, a Zionist who spoke truth to Israel's detractors. This guy was, Martin Luther King was described as, he would unequivocally denounce the libel against Jews and recommit himself to the Zionist cause. He was compared to a prophet of Israel. They described him as a fervent Zionist at the time. You see him there. You see him with some of these allies. Here it says, did you know that Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, Stanley Levison, and Harry Wachtel were MLK's closest advisors? You would think that they would be black guys, but they weren't. They were Jews. Stanley Levison wrote his speeches. Some say he wrote most of the I Have a Dream speech. After the death of William Weiner, who was the treasurer of the Communist Party, it was Stanley Levison who took over his position. It was once reported that there were, quote, so many Jews in the Communist Party that the FBI hired two Jewish brothers, Morris Childs and Jack Childs, as spies planted inside the Communist Party to spy on them. One thing about the media not telling the truth, let me bring this up.
Okay, so
about the SPF.
I'm just trying to understand why you might think he was a pawn or whether you think he was involved in it. I mean, he's a self-proclaimed Zionist. So why do you think he was being used?
I don't know if he knew that. I don't
Oh, he
know.
knew.
That's your opinion. I mean,
Oh, come on. He's a smart man. Stop playing. Look, he knew what Zionism was.
Smart man. Why do you say that?
Huh?
How do you know? And sometimes, you can't see the forest for the trees is what I'm saying. It's like when you're in it, right in the thick of it, you might think that you are doing the good work. Like those lit people on the stage dancing
No,
like
no, I don't buy that. Stop. He was not, look, stop playing. Stop playing with me. He was articulate. He was well-read. He was learned. He was a learned individual. He hung out with educated people. He knew what Zionism was.
Communism or Zionism?
Both. He knew all of them. He knew all the isms. Huh?
He was both.
Huh?
It's not the same thing. They're not necessarily the same thing. Was he working for Zionists or
I
communists?
said both. He understood both of them.
Both.
Yes, he understood all the isms. He understood communism, Zionism, Marxism. He understood it all. He understood what he was doing.
He had a lot of time on his hands since he was out there having sex with all these white women. That's another thing, but I don't care about that as much. That's his.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to, because I'm not seeing that he's a pawn in anything. I'm seeing that the reason that he is so celebrated and promoted is because he was a Zionist. That makes perfect sense.
Question is he a black history hero? Do you think that he was working for black folks?
No, well,
that's part of the question.
Okay. Apparently, he's using black folks to further the goals of communism, to further the goals of Zionism. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like to me.
I just don't know if he knew that that's what he was doing. He might have thought, I have a seat at the table. This is my opportunity to bring my people forward.
I can't give him the benefit of the doubt on that. He's going to communist meetings and hanging out with communists, hanging out with Jewish people and talking about Zionism. I don't give him the benefit of the doubt. You kidding me?
I mean, you're not alone. You're not alone in that thought, that thought.
I can't, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck.
I mean, I feel like that about
and
Obama.
What to me, what makes sense is that's why he's MLK.
That's why there's an MLK name.
That's exactly why, because he was a Zionist. Because, if he wasn't, then it wouldn't be that.
Hold up. But wait, what about this? Okay, so this is this is what they say he is, right? Sorry. As far as the anti-Semitism, I mean, sorry, he's so pro-Israel. I'm sorry, that is not the clip. But they say he's so pro-Israel, like you're saying, like he's obviously a Zionist. But
No,
what
he said it himself that he was a Zionist.
well, no, I didn't see that. I didn't see him say he was a
I'm pretty
Zionist.
sure that's what the guy said.
Okay, but did he say it? We didn't hear him say that. But
No, the guy was reading from MLK's description thing and said that he said he was a Zionist at the
yeah,
end.
I'm just saying I didn't hear him say it, but I understand where that comes from. And this is in his own words, but I'll show you how they play it, because this is also the Zionist movement to build him up as one of their own, somebody who was so pro-Israel, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a great example. So this is in his own words.
World see that Israel must exist and has a right to exist and is one of the great outposts of democracy in the world.
I can't hear anything. Is that quiet?
I'm talking, it's just the words on the screen. These are quotes that they use to prove the point that he was so pro-Israel.
He stood with Israel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then, but then they
If I'm
didn't
not mistaken, he was also a Republican. So there's that too.
see, that's what I mean, like getting pulled in. Well, okay, but the speech that you just heard didn't end there. And that's what makes me think that it's all these different groups using him for whatever they find useful.
MLK embraced this.
Hold on.
BLM embraced.
What do you mean all these different groups?
Okay, so the Communist Party, whatever the government, whoever's
so-
on the side, the liberals,
Okay,
white,
so listen,
Mhm.
communism,
Mhm.
Judaism, Marxism, Zionism
Mhm.
are all very closely interconnected, like very, very closely.
Mhm.
I don't know if you understand this or not.
I do, but are they together? Are they factions that are?
They are, like socialism is the necessary step that you have to have before you can achieve communism, right?
Mhm.
So like
Right.
all of these things are they kind of, I don't want to say they work together, but they're sort of different sides of the cube. You see what I'm saying?
Okay. No, I do. I understand that, but I don't think I understand.
And I can even go as far as to throw in Satanism with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Communism is very closely linked to Satanism. In fact, Satanists are kind of the ones that came up with communism, right? So communism and Satanism are, so a lot of times when people talk about this being a spiritual war and this, that, and the other, right? There's truth to that because it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So,
and a lot of these battles exist within the spiritual practices of religion, if you can.
Right. And we could get into, some of the stuff when this isn't about religion necessarily, but we could get into some of it. But the authors and the proponents of these isms are almost invariably Jewish. You understand? So all of it is, and then we start talking about going back to the Masonic and shit like that, right? Almost all of this is Jewish.
Yeah. Also, I mean, Zionism, they follow, there's Kabbalah and then there's the Talmud as opposed to the Torah and the Bible. I understand they're closely related, but those are very different.
Right, but if I'm not mistaken, the Torah is the main book, but the Talmud is the real main book.
Okay, I don't know.
That could be wrong. Again, from my understanding,
I don't know.
right?
Yeah.
From my understanding, the Torah is like the main.
Oh, The Zohar.
Oh yeah,
Zohar.
and that's a different
Yeah.
one too. But yeah, I'm not sure how that fits in, but my understanding kind of is like, the Torah is the real one. And then they have the
First, though,
encyclopedia.
is that the Zionists, like Zionists that I've been experienced with personally, and that what we know of, are amongst the most racist, anti-Black people on the planet. Like, they are so anti-Black. And so it's like you're hand in hand with this person. Obviously, it's for something else. Obviously, it's for a different agenda, because it's not because you love the Negro person. It's not. It's like,
Yeah, but I don't understand why.
mhm.
Yeah,
I'm just
but stop playing. Of course, they love a Negro. Of course, they do. If the Negro is saying what they want him to
exactly, that's
say,
what I'm saying. But there's
because the
no
Negro is going to bring the
skill.
Black community along with them, right? They used, yeah. So I don't understand why of course they love Negroes.
I'm just putting that out there, that they are so racist,
Yeah, but they love you if you do what they want, right?
right? And you think that he knew that?
I mean, we saw the Cat Williams interview,
Do you think he knew
right? If
that?
you
We've
do what you're
seen
supposed
all
to
the
do,
Kanye interviews. Come on, don't play.
right,
Like,
right. If
like,
you're doing what you're supposed to
like,
do,
here you go.
There's a Jewish person right there controlling the country, the Jewish controlling that who gets the best video or not, controlling what the media says about me. Person, not Jewish. Let me just say one thing. But they are though. That's the only thing. It just so happens that they are.
As for all of the emotional outrage that he causes when he says the words like the Jewish media, I mean, the media is kind of controlled by a lot of Jewish people out here. We can actually see here who controls your mind. This was a chart back in 2013. All of these red is Jewish people, right? So they own like Universal Studios, ABC News, CBS, CNN, Columbia Pictures, DreamWorks, Facebook, Google, also run by Jewish people, Yahoo, Marvel, Pixar, the New York Post, LucasArts, MSNBC, DreamWorks, Comcast, the New York Times, Comedy Central, Wall Street Journal. I mean, admittedly, a lot of these large media organizations and tech companies that are able to shape global narratives are run by Jewish people. So,
You know. Oh, why don't I hear you now?
it is what it is. But I'm still not seeing anything that says he was a pawn in any way.
I mean,
I'm
I've
not-
just said that. I just said that based on the last videos because I don't know if he knew necessarily what he was pushing. It looks that way. It hell of a looks
I
like
mean, that
it.
seems naive of you to say that he didn't know what he was pushing, getting up there giving speeches and everything, and didn't know what he was talking about. Come on.
No, he knew, but the speeches weren't about any of those.
Yes, they
Any of
were.
those. I mean, they were pushing agendas that are based in those.
Seems like he was pushing a communist agenda, and
right, but
a
that's
communist
not. What if
Zionist
he was saying
agenda,
on
and
his
that's
face?
why he was promoted. I mean, that's what I saw today.
Right, but I don't know if he knew that that's why he was promoted, is
Yeah,
what
and
I'm
I
saying.
don't understand how you could even give him the benefit of the doubt on that. He's a learned man.
So when he started realizing that he was being used and that nothing was moving his people forward, then that's when he changed his tune, and then that's when he was assassinated. So during the times that he was making those speeches, that would lend itself to the belief that he didn't know what he was doing. When he realized it is when he came around and started, changing his dance.
Yeah, I don't know if he was changing his dance.
What do you mean? Well, I
I
was
mean, I know that some speeches later on were a little more aggressive, but I don't know that he didn't want government programs all of a sudden. I don't know that he didn't want communism all of a sudden. I mean, that's what he's been
tired of
pushing for.
marching in the end for nothing, and he said straight up, like, this time when we come to Washington, we're coming to get our check. When he said that, he got dead.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he was suddenly anti-communist.
You're right. That's correct. In the end of this all, when I went down all the paths and the womanizing allegations and the witness testimonies to his proclivity for sexual escapades, and then I ended up when I ended up at the end of what I would call my path is him wanting to do right by the people that he said he was doing right by the whole time, and actually seeing the struggle for what it was and wanting to find a real resolve there, and feeling like up until then he was walking his people into a burning house asking for integration. And so, you know, I wish we got to spend more time with that dude because I think he was pretty authentic. Up until that point, I don't know. Was he a pawn? Yeah. Did he know? I don't know. Is he a hero? Only if we let him be, you know, if we make him that. Otherwise, he was just a man.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, your question is he a pawn in the game? I just don't see anything that would indicate that he's a pawn in any way. I don't see.
Thought he was
anything.
part of the game, right?
Yeah, I don't see anything that would indicate that he was being used or anything like that. I just don't. I haven't seen it today. This is what I mean, you know.
You don't think he was, well, okay, fine. So you just think he changed his mind in the end?
I think his rhetoric changed in the end.
But it wasn't because his mind changed?
I don't know. It was the end, so it's not knowable, really.
I didn't know it was the end. Mostly, honestly, when the controversies came in, which I was going to play next, but I'm looking at the time. Are we good? I can't tell. I'm bad.
Don't worry about it. Just keep rocking, sweetheart.
Okay,
I'm trying
cool.
to keep you on track, keep you focused. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to get you back on the path.
Okay, so here we go. And this,
Okay, so but you're gonna wrap it up in the next one, though, right?
I can, yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
right. You know, that's about.
Are you bored? Are you so bored?
No, I'm not bored at all. But I'm saying that's about as we're not. You know, we kind of keeping them, you know, kind of tight. Is that the end?
What did you say? Yeah, that was the
That's
end
it?
of the, yeah.
Because you were looking off into the.
Because there was a person that walked into my library.
um,
Because society tells me to.
give a pass on that. Shit.
No, because I have other things. Well, you know, it's still, yeah.